When the silverback refused to give the baby back to his mate, everyone watching thought they were witnessing a kidnapping. But what the mother did next left 250 people completely speechless. Before you watch, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story like this one. And write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. The thermal imaging camera showed the problem immediately. Baby's core temperature is dropping, Dr. Patricia Chen said, her finger tracing the blue-tinged reading on the screen. 96 degrees. He's been in the rain for 10 minutes. Amara doesn't know what to do. Through the glass at Riverside Wildlife Sanctuary, they could see the young mother pacing frantically in the freezing rain, clutching 3-week-old Kofi against her chest. But her movements were jerky, panicked, exposing him to the wind with every turn. It was 1:45 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. A violent storm had rolled in without warning, dropping the temperature 18 degrees in minutes. The rest of the troop had retreated to the heated caves. But Amara, a first-time mother who'd been hand-raised at another facility, had stayed outside, confused, overwhelmed, making everything worse. "She's spiraling," James, the head keeper, whispered. "Look at her. She's shivering too. She's going to lose him to hypothermia." That's when Makoa moved. The 420-pound silverback exploded from the dry cave with terrifying speed, charging straight toward Amara through the rain. His massive fists slammed against the muddy ground. His hooting vocalization cut through the storm like a war cry. The crowd of 250 people pressed against the glass, gasping. "He's going to attack her," someone screamed. But Makoa didn't attack. He rushed Amara with a display of pure dominance, baring teeth the size of human fingers, creating a wall of intimidation that made her drop instantly into a submissive crouch, covering her head. In that split second, Makoa reached out. His movement was gentle but firm, precise despite his power. He scooped Kofi from Amara's arms and tucked the shivering infant against his massive chest, right against the skin, creating a living incubator. Then he turned his back on Amara and marched to the driest spot in the enclosure, a bed of fresh hay under the concrete shelter. He sat down, crossed his arms over the baby, became an immovable fortress, and he refused to give him back. Amara screamed. The sound that came from her was primal, desperate, heartbreaking. She didn't understand what had just happened. All she knew was that her baby was gone. She rushed toward Makoa, arms outstretched, high-pitched distress vocalizations echoing off the viewing glass. The crowd pressed closer, umbrellas forgotten, watching the scene unfold with mounting horror. Amara reached for Kofi, her fingers grasping at Makoa's arm, trying to pull him away. But Makoa simply shoved her back with a gentle but immovable nudge of his elbow. When she persisted, lunging again, Makoa let out a growl that vibrated through the ground. A sound like grinding stones. It was a clear warning. "Back off." "We have a situation," James said into his radio, his voice tight. "Makoa has taken the infant from Amara. She's trying to get him back. He's refusing." Above the enclosure, on the keeper catwalks, 2 staff members with tranquilizer rifles took position. Their safeties clicked off. Dr. Chen shook her head violently. "No. If we dart him, he falls forward. 420 pounds lands on top of that baby. Instant death. We have to wait this out." "But the baby needs to feed," another keeper protested. "Infant gorillas need milk every 2 to 3 hours to maintain blood sugar. If Makoa doesn't give him back soon, we're looking at dehydration and hypoglycemia." "I know," Dr. Chen said, her jaw clenched. "But right now, hypothermia is the bigger threat. Look at the thermal reading. Kofi's temperature is already stabilizing. He's at 97.5 now. Makoa's body heat is saving his life." For the first hour, Amara was relentless. She circled Makoa like a caged animal, screaming, pleading with vocalizations that sounded heartbreakingly human. She tried pulling at his fur. She tried pushing against his massive back. She tried reaching around him to grab the baby. Each time, Makoa blocked her. Sometimes with his body. Sometimes with a warning growl. Sometimes with a display of teeth that made the crowd flinch. Behind the glass, a visiting primatologist pulled out her phone, recording everything. "This is extraordinary," she whispered to her colleague. "Male gorillas rarely intervene this directly in infant care. The fact that he's maintaining this position for over an hour, assessing her fitness as a mother, this is unprecedented maternal evaluation behavior." Dr. Chen nodded, watching the thermal readings. Kofi's heart rate is steady. Respiratory rate normal. Makoa is holding him in the exact position that maximizes warmth and minimizes stress. He knows what he's doing. He thinks she's unfit, James observed quietly. He's not being cruel. He's protecting Kofi from her panic. The crowd saw something different. They saw a mother crying for her child and a tyrannical father refusing to give him back. Parents clutched their own children closer. Some people left, unable to watch, but those who stayed were about to witness something extraordinary. 2 hours passed. The rain stopped, leaving the enclosure damp and cold. Amara was exhausted. She sat 10 feet away from Makoa, panting, her eyes fixed on the black bundle barely visible in his crossed arms. Kofi had stopped crying. The thermal camera showed his body temperature had normalized to a healthy 98.6 degrees. He was likely asleep, lulled by the slow, steady beat of his father's heart. But time was running out for a different reason. "It's been 2.5 hours since his last feeding," Dr. Chen said, watching the clock. "His blood sugar will start dropping soon. Makoa can't nurse him. We're on borrowed time." Amara stood up slowly. She wiped mud from her face with the back of her hand. She looked at Makoa, really looked at him, and something in her expression changed. "She's calming down," James whispered. "Look at her breathing. It's slowing." Amara seemed to come to a realization. She had been fighting Makoa for hours and gotten nowhere. He was an immovable object. And perhaps somewhere in her instincts she understood that Kofi was quiet because he was finally safe. Warm. Protected. She understood that her panic was the problem. She changed her tactic entirely. Amara walked toward Makoa. The crowd held its breath collectively. Several people gasped, thinking she was about to attack. Makoa stiffened, his muscles tensed beneath his silver saddle of fur. He watched Amara from the corner of his eye, ready to defend Kofi with lethal force if necessary. But Amara didn't reach for the baby. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Instead, she walked slowly around to Makoa's back. And then she did something that stunned every primatologist watching the monitors. She sat down directly behind him, pressing her back against his massive, warm back. The crowd went silent. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. Dr. Chen leaned closer to the monitor, her eyes wide. "She's showing trust. In gorilla society, you never turn your back on a threat. It's the ultimate vulnerability. She's telling him, 'I'm not your enemy, I'm your partner.'" Amara reached around slowly. Her hand didn't go for Kofi. It went to Makoa's shoulder. And then she began to groom him. Her fingers moved methodically through his thick silver fur, picking out bits of straw, dirt, and dried mud. Her touch was gentle, rhythmic, deliberate. She made a soft rumbling sound deep in her chest, a vocalization that means peace, comfort, and submission in the gorilla language. It was an apology without words. The kidnapping scene had transformed into something tender, something profound. Amara was acknowledging Makoa's authority. She was thanking him for protecting Kofi. She was telling him, "I am calm now. I understand. I am ready to be his mother again." Makoa sat perfectly still, letting her groom him. The tension drained visibly from his massive shoulders. He closed his eyes. A long sigh escaped him, puffing in the cold air like smoke. For 20 minutes, Amara groomed Makoa with meticulous care. She worked across his shoulders, down his arms, through the silver fur on his back. She made those soft rumbling sounds continuously, a lullaby of reconciliation. In gorilla society, grooming is sacred, Dr. Chen explained quietly to the staff gathered around the monitors. It's not just hygiene, it's reconciliation, it's submission, it's love. The amount of time she's spending, 20 minutes, that's significant. She's not just apologizing, she's pledging loyalty to him as the protector of their family. James wiped his eyes. She's telling him she trusts his judgment. Exactly, Dr. Chen whispered. She's acknowledging he was right. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Some people were crying quietly. They had come expecting entertainment and were witnessing something far more profound. A master class in conflict resolution played out between two beings who shared no common language with humans, yet communicated with perfect clarity. Finally, Amara stopped grooming. She moved slowly, carefully, around to Makoa's front. She didn't grab, she didn't lunge. She sat cross-legged in front of him and lowered her head, exposing the vulnerable curve of her neck. Another gesture of absolute trust. She held out her hands, palms up, empty, waiting. It was a request, not a demand. "I am ready now, please." Makoa opened his eyes. He looked at Amara for a long moment, studying her face. Then he looked down at Kofi, who was beginning to stir in his arms, making small, hungry sounds. The silverback seemed to be assessing her. Was she calm? Was the panic truly gone? Was she steady enough to hold the future of his troop? Dr. Chen gripped James's arm. "This is it. He's deciding." The entire viewing area held its breath. 250 people frozen in anticipation. Then, with a gentleness that seemed impossible for hands that could bend steel bars, Makoa slowly unfolded his massive arms. He lifted tiny Kofi, cradling the baby's head with one hand, supporting his body with the other. He leaned forward and carefully, so carefully, placed Kofi into Amara's outstretched hands. But he didn't let go immediately. Makoa kept one enormous hand on Kofi's back, hovering, double-checking that Amara had a secure grip. His eyes locked onto hers. One last test, one last moment of evaluation. Amara took the baby. She didn't run. She didn't panic. She cradled Kofi close, adjusting him perfectly this time. Head supported against her chest, body sheltered from the cold. She immediately guided him to her breast. Kofi latched on and began to nurse, the rhythmic sound of his feeding audible in the suddenly quiet enclosure. But Amara didn't retreat to the far side of the habitat. She stayed right there, sitting knee to knee with Makoa. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his massive chest while Kofi nursed, closing the circle of their family. In the crowd, a father held his daughter tighter, tears streaming down his face. "Did you see that, sweetie?" he whispered. "That's what family does. When someone you love is struggling, you help them. And when someone helps you, you say thank you." His daughter nodded, watching the gorilla family with wide eyes. Makoa reached out and placed a heavy hand on top of Amara's head, his fingers gently stroking her hair. It was a gesture of forgiveness, of protection, of solidarity. The crowd erupted, not in cheers but in quiet exclamations of awe. People were wiping tears openly. Parents hugged their children. A woman near the front pressed both hands to her mouth, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. They had witnessed something extraordinary. A father who stepped in when a mother was overwhelmed. A mother who humbled herself to learn and reconnect. a family that found its way back together through trust and emotional intelligence that rivaled anything in the human world. Above the enclosure, the keepers lowered their tranquilizer rifles, clicking safeties back on. "He wasn't stealing him," Dr. Chen whispered. "He was saving him. He waited until she could regulate her emotions before giving him back." The footage went viral within hours. Primatologists analyzed it as textbook alloparenting and conflict resolution. Male gorillas aren't just protectors. They're emotionally intelligent participants in child rearing. From that day forward, Amara was a different mother. Calmer, more confident. During storms, visitors would see Makoa sitting with Amara beside him and Kofi playing safely between them. And whenever Amara needed rest, Makoa would pull Kofi into his lap. And Amara would let him, trusting him completely. The standoff that terrified 250 people had become a bond that would last a lifetime. Because sometimes love looks like conflict from the outside, and sometimes the bravest thing a parent can do is trust someone else to help. Did you enjoy this story? After seeing how Amara and Makoa resolved their conflict without words, do you believe animals can communicate love and trust just as powerfully as humans? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.